Your old life didn't collapse randomly. It didn't fade because you were weak, confused, or unprepared. It ended because something inside you outgrew its own architecture. What you are feeling right now, the strange heaviness, the quiet disorientation, the eerie sense that the world around you looks the same, but feels completely different, is not a psychological malfunction. It is an energetic rupture, a quantum event, a measurable shift in the frequency of your consciousness so profound that the version of you who built your life up to this point can no longer survive inside it. The relationships that once anchored you, the routines that once defined you, the identity you performed with such precision, they no longer recognize you. And the reason they don't is because you are no longer recognizable to them. You didn't choose this consciously. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to shed your life like an old skin. Something deeper made the decision. Something older. Something that has been watching your human story unfold from the inside out. That silent intelligence, the one that guides you into and out of timelines, finally pressed the switch. It ended an era. It initiated the collapse. It dismantled the scaffolding of a self that was never meant to carry the frequency you are beginning to hold. And the proof that this ending is real, that this metamorphosis is already in motion, is the fact that you are here, reading these words. You don't find messages like this by accident. You're pulled into them the same way a caterpillar is pulled toward the chrysalis, through an instinct that feels like fear but is actually destiny. The old life is incompatible with the energy you're carrying now. That incompatibility feels like breakdown, like burnout, like bad luck stacking itself in violent patterns. But what's actually happening is far more intelligent. Your consciousness has reached a point where maintaining the old identity would be a violation of your evolution. So your system has begun the only process that makes sense: demolition. The collapse is not chaos, it is calibration. It is your consciousness scraping away every structure that cannot withstand the frequency you are shifting into. You aren't losing control. You're losing the illusion that you ever needed to control any of this. The identity you've been mourning isn't dying because you failed. It's dying because you expanded. And your expansion is the one thing the old version of you was never built to survive. What you are experiencing right now is not random discomfort. It is not burnout, not fatigue, not the emotional bruising that comes from a difficult season of life. It is something far more structured and far more precise. You are inside a frequency incompatibility event. This occurs when the vibration of your core consciousness rises so dramatically that the reality you built from your old frequency begins to glitch. The resonance collapses. The alignment dissolves. The life that once felt familiar starts to feel foreign, distorted, out of sync, like a song you used to dance to but can no longer hear without feeling, strangely disconnected from the rhythm. Your consciousness has recalibrated itself without asking for your permission. It didn't need to. Evolution doesn't negotiate. While your mind was busy surviving routines, managing expectations, and playing the role you perfected for years, your deeper intelligence was preparing for an upgrade. Now that upgrade is complete enough to destabilize everything built from the frequency you once occupied. You can still see your old life, but it feels like you're viewing it through a fogged window. You can still perform the tasks, say the lines, move through the motions, but it feels hollow, like the energetic signature that once animated those actions has been drained out of them. This is because you've outgrown the entire ecosystem of your past self. Imagine your old life was a radio station broadcasting at 98.7 FM for years. Your mind, emotions, and identity were tuned to that station in perfect harmony. But something powerful happened beneath the surface. Slowly, silently, your internal frequency began rising to 107.5 FM. At first, you didn't notice the shift, but then the static started. The distortion, the inability to connect to things that once defined you. And now, no matter how desperately you try to tune back into 98.7, all you hear is noise. The music is gone because you are no longer the receiver capable of hearing it. People around you haven't changed, yet they feel different. Your job hasn't changed, yet it drains you in ways it never did. Your routines haven't shifted, yet they feel suffocating. This is the natural consequence of running a higher frequency through an identity crafted at a lower one. Your system refuses to tolerate what used to be normal. Your body rejects old patterns like a foreign organ. Your energy pushes away environments and people who no longer match your expanded resonance. This event is not punishment. It is not failure. It is evolution forcing you into alignment with the version of yourself you are becoming. And because you cannot return to the old frequency, the only direction available is forward toward the reality already, vibrating at the level you now occupy. There comes a moment in every metamorphosis where the collapse is no longer subtle. It becomes undeniable. You start to feel as if the center of your personality, the familiar structure you've lived inside for years, is dissolving from the inside out. The thoughts that once defined you feel foreign. The emotions that once guided you feel detached. The desires that once fueled your choices no longer hold the same power. You begin to sense a strange emptiness. Not the emptiness of lack, but the emptiness of expansion, like a room that has been cleared before something new is built inside it. This is the identity disintegration point. The quantum threshold, where the version of you that belonged to your old frequency can no longer survive. This stage is terrifying only when you mistake the dissolving identity for the dissolving self. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding the layers that were built from survival, from conditioning, from trauma, from expectation, from every compromise you made to fit into a timeline that your consciousness has already outgrown. The identity was a container, a costume, a temporary configuration shaped by history and habit. Now that configuration is breaking down because your energy signature can no longer bind itself to it. You have outgrown the story. This dissolution shows up in strange ways. You may feel exhausted for no reason, as if holding up your personality has become heavy labor. You may find it impossible to pretend, anymore impossible to smile through conversations that drain you, impossible to commit to routines that deaden you, impossible to force enthusiasm for things that no longer resonate. You might feel moments where your inner world falls completely silent, as if your old thoughts have stopped generating. You may feel bursts of clarity followed by waves of confusion, like a radio switching between two channels that don't belong to the same world. This is not instability. This is reconfiguration. Your consciousness is stripping away the outdated architecture of the old self, so it can build a new identity aligned with your upgraded frequency. It's not that you don't know who you are, it's that you are no longer limited to who you were. You are being expanded into a version of yourself that has not yet taken form. And the space between identities feels like a death because something is dying. The character you played. The disintegration point is the highest evidence of your evolution. The old self collapses, not because you are broken, but because you are finally ready to exist as something bigger, truer, and far more aligned with the blueprint your soul has been waiting to activate. You are not falling apart. You are being cleared. There's a moment in your journey when the universe stops whispering and starts testing you. Not because you're unworthy, not because you're unprepared, but because expansion always requires friction. You keep thinking the resistance in your life is a sign that something is wrong. But in the quantum field, resistance is confirmation. It means a new timeline is forming around you, and your old identity is pulling at your ankles, trying desperately to keep you in the frequency where it once felt safe. You notice it in small ways first. A sudden heaviness, unexpected self-doubt, old fears resurfacing out of nowhere. It almost feels like your past self is fighting for survival, and in a way it is. Every time you take a step toward a higher reality, your nervous system tries to drag you back to what it's familiar with. This is why people quit right before the breakthrough, because they mistake the final collapse of an old timeline for a bad omen. But here's the truth. The closer you get to the shift, the more chaotic the field becomes. Patterns glitch. Relationships feel strange. Time moves differently. You're not broken. You're destabilizing an outdated version of yourself. You're interrupting neural pathways that have ruled your behavior for years. You're breaking the gravitational pull of your old frequency. That discomfort you feel is your metamorphosis. Most people never learn how to hold themselves through this phase. They panic. They return to old habits. They chase temporary comfort instead of permanent transformation. But you're not here to repeat cycles. You're here to rewrite them. You must learn to breathe through the distortion. You must learn to stand still while your old identity trembles and dissolves. The quantum field will always test your readiness by shaking what you're not willing to outgrow. This is where you anchor the new frequency, not by forcing, not by fighting, but by witnessing. Your power lies in your ability to feel the fear without feeding it, to see the chaos without losing yourself in it. When you can stay centered while your reality rearranges, the field responds. It recognizes your stability as a signal of alignment, and then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the noise fades, the heaviness lifts. The inner conflict dissolves, because you didn't run, you didn't hide, you didn't surrender to your old timeline. You outlasted it. There comes a point in your evolution when life stops giving you answers and starts giving you mirrors. Not the soft, gentle mirrors that show you your potential, but the harsh, unforgiving ones that reveal everything you've ignored, avoided, denied, or numbed. This is the part most people run from. They think the universe is punishing them. They think something is going wrong. But in truth, this is the highest form of alignment. The quantum field cannot elevate you without exposing the frequencies that can't come with you. You've felt this, haven't you? Those moments when emotions hit for no logical reason, when old memories resurface like ghosts, when people trigger you without meaning to, when you feel strangely uncomfortable in places you used to feel at home. None of that is coincidence. It's your energy recalibrating. It's your unconscious stepping into the light. The universe doesn't bring these things up to break you. It brings them up to free you. Because the truth is, you can't shift into a higher timeline while carrying unresolved density. Every suppressed emotion, every unhealed wound, every version of you that you buried is still vibrating in your field. And those vibrations anchor you to realities you've already outgrown. That's why the universe forces you to confront them now. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Expansion demands release. This phase feels strange, because you're shedding identities you once relied on for survival. You might feel confused, restless, or emotionally raw. You might not recognize yourself some days. And that's exactly the point. You're not supposed to recognize the person you're becoming. Not yet. You're dissolving patterns that were never truly yours, beliefs that were handed to you, fears that were inherited, behaviors born from moments you didn't even know shaped you. Most people interpret this as a sign to stop. But you must understand, when the universe forces you inward, it's because something outward is about to shift. The field is clearing space. Your energy is being restructured. Your identity is being rewritten at a quantum level. You're not losing yourself, you're meeting yourself. This is the work no one sees. The inner alchemy, the silent transformation, the invisible rewiring of your emotional frequency. The universe watches how you move through this phase, because this is where your next timeline is decided. Not when you're confident, not when you're powerful, but when you're vulnerable, uncertain, and still willing to rise. If you can stay present with the discomfort, if you can witness your shadows without collapsing into them, if you can feel the emotion without becoming the emotion, you'll emerge with a clarity and strength that feels almost otherworldly. This is how the quantum field prepares you for realities your old self was never built to survive. There's a shift that happens so quietly, most people never notice it. It begins the moment you stop trying to escape your inner world and finally turn toward it. Not with fear, not with resistance, but with curiosity and maybe even acceptance. This is where the quantum field starts paying attention. Because awareness is the first signal that a new identity is forming. And the moment you become aware of your patterns, those patterns begin to lose their power. You start realizing that every emotion you've been running from was never the enemy. Every fear you avoided was never meant to paralyze you. Every limitation you believed in was only a story you didn't write, but one you've been living inside for years. And suddenly you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Leverage. The sense that maybe your inner world isn't a battlefield. Maybe it's a gateway. This is where the quantum shift begins. Not when you manifest. Not when you visualize. Not when you believe hard enough. But when you understand that your outer reality has always been a reflection of your inner chemistry. Your emotions are signals. Your triggers are maps. Your fears are teachers. And every single one of them has been guiding you toward this moment of clarity. But clarity isn't comfortable. It pulls you out of autopilot. It forces you to stop living on emotional reflex. You begin noticing the exact second your mood changes, the exact moment your body contracts, the exact trigger that flips an old survival pattern. And for the first time, instead of reacting, you pause. That pause is your power. That pause is the moment you step outside the identity that has been controlling you. That pause is the crack in the timeline where transformation becomes possible. Most people overlook this. They think quantum leaps happen through massive action or divine intervention. But the truth is that quantum shifts happen in micro moments, in the subtle rewiring of who you are when no one is watching, when you choose not to react the old way, when you choose not to collapse into fear, when you choose not to repeat the same emotional cycle you've repeated for years. Every micro-choice becomes a frequency. Every frequency becomes a signal. Every signal becomes a new timeline. And what you don't realize yet is that the universe responds instantly. The field begins rearranging itself the moment you interrupt an unconscious pattern. People treat this like philosophy, but it's physics. You are literally collapsing a new version of reality by refusing to reinforce the old one. This is the part where things start feeling lighter. You feel more aware, more conscious, more grounded. The fog begins to lift. You're not healed yet, not transformed yet, but you're awake. And once you're awake, you can't go back. Because the moment you see your own unconsciousness, you're no longer trapped by it. There is a phase in your transformation where the universe begins to rearrange. Things around you, not subtly, but unmistakably. People shift. Conversations feel different. Opportunities appear and disappear with strange timing. Your routines start breaking on their own. Even your desires begin to evolve in ways you didn't plan. And for a moment, it feels like you're losing control. But you're not losing control. You're losing the version of yourself that once needed control to feel safe. This is the point where the quantum field starts synchronizing with your new frequency. Not the one you spoke about, not the one you pretended to align with, but the one you've actually embodied through your inner work. The field doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your vibration. And your vibration has been shifting quietly with every moment of awareness. Every emotion you allowed. Every pattern you interrupted. Now the outer world must adjust. This adjustment can feel chaotic because your old timeline is collapsing. People who match the frequency of your wounds begin drifting away. Situations built on fear or scarcity start dissolving. Habits that once numbed you suddenly feel unbearable. The universe removes what cannot exist in the frequency you're rising into. And because the mind is wired to cling to familiarity, this removal feels like loss. But nothing real is being taken from you, and only illusions. Only attachments. Only versions of yourself you've outgrown. This is where most people panic. They confuse detachment with destruction. They mistake divine realignment for abandonment. They try to rebuild old timelines, instead of stepping into the one forming right in front of them. They think the universe is closing doors, when in truth it's clearing the hallway. If you can hold your center in this phase, if you can trust the unraveling, you'll begin to see the pattern behind the chaos. The synchronicities increase. The right people start appearing. The right ideas come through effortlessly. You begin meeting versions of yourself you didn't know existed. You start feeling a pull, a quiet magnetic certainty, guiding you somewhere you can't logically explain. This is coherence. This is alignment. This is the moment when your energy and your destiny begin speaking the same language. You'll notice that your intuition sharpens. Your choices become cleaner. Your mind feels quieter. Your body feels lighter. You may not have reached your new timeline yet, but you can feel it, like a frequency humming beneath your skin. This phase isn't about taking massive action. It's about not interfering with the transformation already happening. It's about trusting the field, trusting the timing, trusting the intelligence that has always been shaping your path. Because once the universe starts rearranging your reality, the only thing that can stop the shift is your old self trying to survive. And you're finally ready to let that version go. There comes a moment in your evolution when the universe stops rearranging things around you and starts rearranging things within you. It's subtle at first, a shift in how you think, how you interpret, how you respond, but then it becomes undeniable. Your mind feels different. Your body feels different. Even your silence feels different. You're not just changing your reality anymore. You're changing the person who creates it. This is the beginning of internal coherence, the state where your thoughts, emotions, and energy finally begin moving in the same direction. Most people never reach this point because their inner world is constantly at war with itself. They desire one thing but feel another. They speak one truth but live another. They believe in possibility but act from fear. That internal contradiction keeps their frequency fragmented, and fragmented frequencies cannot manifest stable timelines. But something in you has shifted. You're no longer leaking energy into old stories. You're no longer draining yourself by fighting your own emotions. You're no longer drowning in unconscious reactions. Instead, you're noticing them, and that awareness is dissolving their power. You begin to see your thoughts not as truths, but as signals. You begin to feel your emotions not as threats, but as information. You begin to understand your triggers not as weaknesses, but as portals. This is the moment the quantum field pays attention. Because coherence is rare, a coherent human is powerful. A coherent mind broadcasts a clear signal, and a clear signal collapses reality faster than any vision board, affirmation, or technique ever could. You'll notice that your desires start feeling less desperate and more inevitable. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying the frequency that attracts them. You stop hoping the universe will choose you and start realizing you are choosing your reality with every vibration you release. This inner alignment creates a strange sensation, almost like life is responding to you before you even act. Ideas flow faster. Opportunities find you. People treat you differently. You feel less reactive, less chaotic, less easily pulled into emotional storms. The noise within you begins to quiet, and what remains is a steady, grounded awareness that feels ancient, familiar, and deeply powerful. This is the shift most people call intuition, but it's deeper than that. It's your consciousness stepping into its rightful authority. It's your energy remembering what your mind forgot. It's your frequency becoming intentional. And once you reach this level of inner coherence, something extraordinary happens. Your future stops feeling distant. Your desires stop feeling out of reach. Your new timeline stops feeling like a fantasy. It begins to feel real, close, inevitable. Because the universe is no longer waiting for you to align. You already have. And now your reality has no choice but to follow. There is a stage in your transformation where the universe begins to respond to you so precisely, so intelligently that it almost feels orchestrated, not by chance, not by luck, but by a deeper intelligence that has been waiting for you to reach this frequency. This is the point where alignment stops being something you practice and becomes something you are. Your energy stabilizes, your clarity sharpens, and for the first time, the gap between who you are and who you're becoming begins to close. But this phase is not about excitement. It's not about achievement. It's not about finally getting what you want. It's about responsibility. Because the moment you vibrate at a higher level, the universe hands you a higher level of accountability. Your thoughts matter more. Your emotions matter more. Your intentions carry weight. You can no longer afford the luxury of unconsciousness. You're operating at a frequency where even small fragments of doubt create ripples. This is when you realize the truth. Manifestation is not about pulling reality toward you. It's about becoming a version of yourself that reality has no choice but to match. And that version of you is emerging right now. You start noticing that old temptations lose their appeal. The habits that once numbed you feel heavy. The people who once distracted you feel distant. You can't lie to yourself anymore, not even in small ways. You can't shrink your standards. You can't betray your intuition. The field simply won't allow it. Your energy has become too refined to tolerate what your old self survived on. This feels like an internal purification. Your mind becomes sharper. Your emotions become cleaner. Your desires become simpler. Not smaller, but purer. You no longer want things to fill a void. You want things that match your highest expression. This is how the quantum field tests your readiness. By removing everything that feeds your lower frequencies. At first, this feels like isolation. People drift. Conversations quiet. Patterns dissolve. You might feel like you're standing alone in an unfamiliar reality. But this loneliness is not emptiness, it is space. Space for the next version of your life to form. Space for new timelines to anchor. Space for the universe to rearrange itself around your upgraded frequency. And then the strangest thing happens. You begin to trust the silence. You begin to trust the slowness. You begin to trust the invisible progress happening beneath the surface. Your intuition becomes louder than your fear. Your inner guidance becomes stronger than your doubts. Your energy begins moving with a calm, magnetic certainty. This is the moment where you stop chasing outcomes and begin attracting experiences that are coded specifically for your evolution. You feel it, a sense that something is aligning behind the scenes, a feeling that the timeline you've been calling in is not ahead of you, but closing in on you. There comes a point in your shift where the universe begins to show you previews of the timeline you're stepping into. Not fully, not clearly, but in fragments. Subtle synchronicities, sudden clarity, intuitive hits that land with a strange familiarity. It feels like déjà vu, but deeper, like you're remembering a future you haven't lived yet. This is not imagination. This is not coincidence. This is the quantum field giving you a glimpse of what your new frequency is beginning to unlock. Your old self can't understand this stage. It tries to rationalize every sign, every shift, every intuitive message. It wants proof, logic, linear explanations. But your new self doesn't operate from logic. It operates from resonance. And right now, resonance is guiding you more powerfully than your mind ever has. You start noticing that certain ideas feel magnetic, certain actions feel guided, certain people feel aligned in a way you can't explain. Your energy gravitates toward what matches your future, not your past. And without even realizing it, you begin making micro choices that pull you closer to the identity you're becoming. This phase feels surreal because nothing on the outside looks dramatically different yet. Your life may look the same, but something in your perception has shifted entirely. The external world feels lighter, softer, more responsive. Conversations feel deeper. Experiences feel symbolic. You begin decoding patterns and messages that were always there. You just weren't vibrating high enough to perceive them. This is the stage where your intuition becomes your primary navigation system. You feel an inner pull telling you what to do, what to avoid, what to release, and where to go, even when you don't know why. And the more you follow it, the more precise the universe becomes. The field speaks in timing, in silence, in instinct, in sensation, and you're finally listening. This is also the stage where distractions lose their power. The things you once clung to for comfort, scrolling, overthinking, emotional reactivity, start to feel energetically incompatible. Your system won't let you indulge in frequencies that pull you backward. The misalignment becomes physically uncomfortable. This is not discipline. This is evolution. Your energy has outgrown behaviors your mind hasn't fully caught up with yet, and slowly a new identity emerges. Not loudly, not explosively, but quietly, confidently, inevitably. You start acting like someone who trusts themselves. You start thinking like someone who knows they are guided. You start walking like someone whose timeline is already secured. This is the moment the universe responds with acceleration. What took months now takes weeks. What took weeks now takes days. What took effort now takes intention. Your reality begins folding toward you, as if the future you've been calling in has finally recognized your frequency and is moving to meet you halfway. There is a moment in every transformation where the universe stops nudging you and starts accelerating you, not gently, not slowly, but with a force that feels almost otherworldly, as if something invisible is pushing you forward, guiding your steps, stretching your capacity, and pulling you into a timeline your old self could never have survived. This is the stage of quantum momentum. Once it begins, you can't go back, because the frequency you've stepped into no longer supports who you used to be. You feel this in your body first. A strange calmness beneath the uncertainty, a grounded confidence beneath the unknown. You don't have all the answers, but you no longer need them. The need for control dissolves. The fear of outcomes weakens. The anxiety about timing fades. You begin moving with a rhythm that doesn't come from your mind. It comes from your alignment. Your old tendencies, hesitation, self-doubt, emotional spirals, waiting for signs. They start to lose their grip. Not because you forced change, but because you outgrew the frequency that fed them. This is the phase where your identity shifts from being the seeker to becoming the channel. You're no longer searching for guidance. Guidance flows through you. Ideas come with clarity. Decisions feel clean. Your intuition speaks in full sentences, not whispers. You feel a quiet certainty even when everything around you is in transition. Momentum begins showing up in your external world too. The right conversations appear at the right time. The opportunities you once struggled to attract now find you with almost suspicious ease. People begin responding to your energy before you even speak. You notice small coincidences stacking into patterns. Confirmation that your vibration has reached a level where the field can finally interact with you directly. But this stage also demands something powerful. You must stop shrinking. You must stop waiting for permission. You must stop returning to the old identity for comfort, because momentum amplifies whatever you embody. If you embody fear, it accelerates fear. If you embody doubt, it accelerates doubt. But if you embody alignment, that deep, inner, unwavering alignment you've been cultivating, then the universe moves faster than your mind can comprehend. This is the part most people sabotage without realizing. They feel the acceleration and instinctively try to slow it down. They overthink. They seek validation. They cling to old habits. They ask the universe for one more sign, forgetting that momentum itself is the sign. But you're different now. You've learned to recognize the language of the field. You've learned to trust the pull. You've learned to move even when you don't know where the path leads. This is why momentum is choosing you. And here's the secret no one tells you. Momentum isn't fast. Momentum is inevitable. There is a point in your metamorphosis where the emptiness stops feeling like a threat and begins revealing its true nature. What you once interpreted as a void, a terrifying blank space where your old life used to be, now starts to feel like a field. A field of raw potential, a field of infinite timelines, a field that responds not to your fear, but to your frequency. This is the stage of conscious reconstruction, and it marks the moment you shift from dissolving to designing. Up until now, so much of your journey has been about surrender, about allowing the collapse, about witnessing the demolition of the identity you once clung to. But dissolution was only half of the process. The chrysalis was never just a tomb. It was a blueprint chamber, a silent laboratory where your next self is drafted in, vibrations before taking form in matter. And now the field is listening. Your consciousness has expanded enough to influence the architecture of your future reality. This is why your thoughts feel different now. Heavier, more potent, more immediate. It's why certain desires return with new urgency, while others simply vanish. The desires that remain, the ones that feel magnetic, undeniable, quietly powerful, they are not random. They are instructions. They are the signature frequencies of the future self you are becoming, echoing backward into your present timeline. And here's the truth that only becomes clear at this stage. Your new identity has already formed in the quantum field. You are not trying to create it. You are aligning with it. This is why old goals feel dead. This is why old dreams feel irrelevant. This is why old versions of success no longer inspire you. Your inner being is rejecting anything that doesn't match the new blueprint. And the more you try to resurrect old motivations, the more drained, disconnected, or numb you feel. Because the universe will not give energy to what your soul has outgrown. This phase demands precision, not perfection, precision. You must begin acknowledging which impulses come from fear and which come from alignment. The field amplifies whichever one you choose. A fear impulse feels frantic, urgent, pressured, heavy. An aligned impulse feels clean, calm, inevitable. You don't chase aligned impulses, you follow them. You don't force aligned paths, you recognize them. You don't question aligned decisions, you trust them. This is the stage where your intuition becomes your primary navigation system. Logic still has a role, but it is no longer the captain. The deeper intelligence within you, the one that orchestrated your dissolution, now steps forward and begins guiding you toward the new structure of your life. But the reconstruction can only begin when you truly accept that there is no going back. Not emotionally, not energetically, not spiritually. You cannot rebuild the old self. You cannot resurrect the old chapter. The chrysalis only opens forward. There is a moment in every metamorphosis where the new identity begins to push against the walls of your consciousness, not as a concept, not as a hope, but as a presence that feels both ancient and newborn at the same time. This is the stage where you begin to sense the outline of the self you are becoming. Not clearly, not fully, but unmistakably. It comes through as a pressure, a pull, a subtle insistence that whispers, "Move differently now." You can feel it in the pauses between your thoughts, in the impulses that arrive without warning, in the strange certainty that the life you once lived is no longer an accurate container for the truth. Awakening inside you, and this is where most people panic. Because the old identity has already dissolved, but the new one has not fully emerged. You are in the liminal phase and the threshold. The in-between. The place where nothing is stable and everything is possible. This stage is not about clarity. It is about capacity. Your system is expanding to hold a reality you have not yet met. Your nervous system, your emotional body, your intuition. All of them are stretching into unfamiliar territory. And this expansion can feel like anxiety, restlessness, or a vague sense that something is coming. Even though you cannot name it yet, do not mistake this sensation for confusion. It is anticipation. It is your future self, brushing against the edges of your awareness, trying to make itself known. The mind will try to interpret this sensation through old patterns, trying to label it, fix it, rationalize it, but this stage cannot be intellectualized. It must be embodied. You have to feel your way through it. The same way a seed feels its way through soil before ever touching the sun. This is where your choices become quantum commands. You are no longer making decisions based on logic or history. You are making decisions based on resonance. Every yes and every no becomes an instruction to the field about the version of you you're choosing to step into. This is why misaligned opportunities suddenly feel heavy, even if they look good on paper. This is why certain people drain you instantly, even if you once loved them. This is why the smallest intuitive nudges feel louder than your rational mind. Your system is calibrating. Your field is refining. Your identity is crystallizing. This phase also brings a strange new sensation, a soft but powerful inner authority. A voice within you that feels less like thought and more like truth. It will not shout. It will not argue. It simply states what is real with a frequency that your entire body recognizes. This is the voice of your emerging self. The version of you who already exists beyond this threshold. Your task now is simple but not easy. Stop trying to force clarity. Stop trying to rush certainty. Stop demanding a full blueprint before taking the first step. You are now entering the stage where surrender and creation merge. This is the phase where your consciousness becomes fully responsible for the reality it inhabits, and not by controlling, not by forcing, but by allowing itself to act as the vessel for what already exists in the quantum field. Your past identity has dissolved. Your old life has been deconstructed, and the phantom echoes of what once was are fading into the background. What remains is the sacred void, the chrysalis space where every intention, every vibration, and every choice carries immense creative power. This is where the death ceremony becomes complete, and the blueprint of your next self begins to manifest in alignment with your highest frequency. You begin noticing a shift in your perception. The world no longer feels random. Events, people, and circumstances no longer seem to happen to you. Instead, you observe a perfect orchestration unfolding around and through you. Your consciousness is no longer a passive witness. It is the director, the architect, and the energetic signal guiding everything toward coherence. You feel a strange clarity, not intellectual clarity, but a somatic, knowing that every micro moment is contributing to the construction of your new reality. At this stage, the old reflexes, fear, attachment, urgency, and the need to control outcomes lose their power. They may arise briefly, like ghosts from the caterpillar form, but your awareness recognizes them immediately as residues of the past frequency. You do not resist their presence. You do not fight. You do not engage in old patterns. Instead, you allow them to dissolve naturally, watching them as a scientist would observe a chemical reaction, neutrally, curiously, and with complete acceptance of the process. Your choices become guided by resonance. You stop chasing what doesn't align with your vibration. You stop trying to recreate old experiences. You begin to move in sync with the subtle currents of the quantum field, letting opportunities, people, and experiences flow toward you effortlessly. Each moment of alignment reinforces the structural integrity of your new self, just as each enzyme in the chrysalis carefully builds the butterfly from the dissolved caterpillar. This is the stage where your grief, your loss, and your phantom life fully integrate into wisdom. The sadness you once felt for the old identity now transforms into gratitude and understanding. The phantom life becomes a reminder of the intelligence orchestrating your evolution, and the immunity to old triggers becomes the confirmation that your energetic body is operating at a frequency beyond the limitations of your past. You are no longer a passive participant in your reality. You have arrived at the culmination of your metamorphosis. This is the moment where the chrysalis fully completes its work, and your consciousness stands on the threshold of your new reality. The dissolution phase, the soup, the phantom life, the immunity to old triggers, the strange mourning, all of it has prepared you for this instant. The intelligence that orchestrated
Your death has now
begun the process of resurrection. You are no longer merely witnessing. You are consciously participating. Every breath, every thought, every feeling is now aligned with the frequency of your next self. In this final stage, your perception of time and possibility shifts. You begin to feel the elasticity of reality itself, the way events, people, and circumstances respond not to wishful thinking, but to your energetic signature. You understand that manifestation is not linear. It is vibrational. The old timeline that you clung to is gone. The new timeline is not just ahead, it is forming in real time as you inhabit your frequency. The paradox is clear. You are both the observer and the creator, the ending and the beginning, the caterpillar and the butterfly simultaneously. Your body, mind, and emotions now act as instruments of coherence. You no longer react unconsciously. You no longer allow old patterns to dictate your experience. The fear, grief, and confusion you once endured have transformed into clarity, presence, and power. Your nervous system has recalibrated. Your intuition has sharpened. Your inner authority is undeniable. You have become the conduit through which your next reality can manifest effortlessly. And yet there is a subtle humility in this awakening. You realize that you are not doing this alone. The universe, the field, your higher self, the intelligence behind all transitions, has guided you with precision, orchestrating every breakdown to catalyze your breakthrough. You now understand that the process of conscious identity, dissolution, was never punishment, chaos, or failure. It was strategy, a meticulously designed protocol to elevate your consciousness to a frequency that could not be contained by the old structures of your life. This final stage asks one thing: radical presence. To fully inhabit your new self without hesitation, without fear, without clinging to the old. To act from resonance rather than compulsion. To let the wings you have cultivated in the unseen realm finally unfold in the visible world. The phantom life is gone. The old triggers no longer bind you. The morning has completed its purpose. You are whole. You are vast. You are the container, the soup, the resurrection, and the butterfly all at once. From this moment forward, you operate in a new paradigm, a conscious co-creator of your reality. Every intention, every vibration, every action is now a deliberate note in the symphony of your new life. There comes a point in every quantum transition where